Hello and welcome to World Insight on CGTN. I'm Tian Wei. Some of the world's most influential business leaders are gathering at the APEC CEO Summit this week to discuss the huge challenges of economic recovery and sustainable development. I had the honor to sit down with a few of them for a panel of the CEO Summit on how business can be a force for good. Joining me in the discussion are Yumiko Murakami, a general partner of Empower Partners, Sabine Aboitis of Aboitis, and Arikia Bennett, CEO of Nagatahu. It's such a pleasure and honor to moderate this panel on business as a force of good. And before I start with the questions, it's such an honor to also introduce the panelists. They're coming from different walks of life, but certainly are all focused on this important topic of business for good. Let's start from Yumiko.
Sure. I'm very, very pleased to be here today. I would love to talk a little bit about our new fund. It's called Empower Partners. We just launched this fund at the end of May in Japan. So we are the first ESG-focused fund in Japan. It's actually a venture capital fund, so we invest in startup companies. The interesting thing about this fund is we're not so-called social impact fund. We believe we can achieve commercially competitive financial returns from our investment. And we can do so by integrating ESG into our investment process. Why? Because we do believe ESG principles or ESG elements are actually drivers for growth for business. So in the past, perhaps there was this notion that ESG elements can be perhaps on the cost side of the equation, not so much, seen as drivers. Things have been changing. I think there is now a higher level of awareness and higher level of recognition in terms of what is really driving business growth. It's just not money. Of course, money is important, but there are many non-financial elements that are categorized as ESG, which are extremely powerful drivers for business. And that's exactly what's happening. And that's why we believe our venture capital fund, Empower Partners, can achieve commercially competitive financial returns from our investment by integrating ESG into our investment process.
And you have a focus on gender, right?
Gender is one of the S and also G as well. We believe not only gender, but in general, diversity, again, is really not cost of equation. It is the weapon in a way for leadership and management to understand, perhaps risk factors, which may not be showing up on your radar screen if you have only similar type of backgrounds in management. If you have different perspectives, that you can bring to the table, that can give you much better control and risk management capability to the company, but also innovation. Just think outside the box. When you have all the same people coming to the table, chances are you're going to come up with very similar ideas. Bring somebody who has very different ideas versus you. That can open up a whole different possibilities. That's what's happening, I think, in a startup scene as well.
We see that, innovation will always be a critical cornerstone for the foundation of especially a company like ours, Aboitis, which has begun almost over 100 years ago, right? And in our culture, it is so ingrained in the way we think, work, and plan that we hopefully are always ready for the future. Although we have found out that we're not so ready for the future, right, with this pandemic. But again, the plan is to always be ready for the future. Keeping a clear view of the horizon that we anticipate, the headwinds and the changing cycles of life. And again, this innovation has kept us thinking of the best possible ways to drive into those headwinds and adapt to these, what we call cycles, changing cycles, right? And not merely to survive them, but to come out of them stronger than ever, right? This way of thinking has proven to be successful through a world war. We went through a world war, we went through a technological revolution. We are thriving in an underdeveloped country, and now obviously this global health crisis. People, again, our most valuable asset, what we say, or potentially our most valuable, because sometimes they're not, right? I always say, because it's hard, it is their work and their open-mindedness that has allowed us to flourish with this organization, right? However, let me pinpoint that in order for us to deliver on this innovation, we must be able to generate profits and prosper, as our growth is directly linked to the growth of the country's economy. So each one and every one of us here representing our own companies and countries are motivated by this philosophy of doing well by doing good, right? Then obviously we need this community, we need to share with the community. And that's a major portion of how we feel that we as a region together in APEC, right, have to kind of work together, right? And, we are an archipelago over 7,000 islands. So we understand more than anyone that no man is one island, and connectivity is so key to all of this, right? And so again, this pushed us to expand, to make sure that we understand clearly the importance of working together.
Well, I think I come from a place where I'm so grateful to be a steward, or what we call a kaitiaki, taking the lead in terms of stewardship around intergenerational responsibility. So as an Indigenous family of 73,000 in a tribe in New Zealand, we've got this mantra which is about for us and our children after us. So we cannot forget where we came from, and we actually must look forward and look ahead to where we are heading to. And we mustn't forget that essential part of it is about us and our children after us. And we use a dimension called tribal economy, which is actually about circular economy. It's about the caring and the protection of our environment, our social connections, etc., but also fusing into that the business and making sure that our business is part of reflective of our values. So your question about making sure we're fit for purpose and that we are always looking forward, we are always interested in making sure we keep that circular economy growing and going. But I think it's really important that we never lose sight of our intergenerational responsibility. And I think the main thing for us is that, and what sets us apart, is that it's our tribal family connections that we actually must bring forward in all of that social economic responsibility. Otherwise, we're no different to any other company, and we want to keep the beauty of actually who we are as a people and take that through to our generations going forward.
Now I all understand every one of yours talk in terms of purpose, but how can we understand the solutions and how to get there? We have good intentions, but how to get there and get the business running and it's sustainable, that's the key issue. On that, I want you to maybe go further into some details right here about how you are running your business, particularly with the family, with the people of the same tribe. Give us one or two examples. Thank you.
So in our regions, you can always run a company from the center, but in our regions, as we look into pockets across our physical environment, across our South Island, we're looking for those special gems that are reflective of those regions where our families in those particular regions could lead, such as fishing industry, such as farming industry, such as looking at the specifics that actually reflect those particular areas. And we've grown our business from a beginning place back in the mid-1990s, 1998, from 170 million up to about $1.8 billion around that type of ethos and that type of growth, because it also isn't about only bringing return to the environment, it's growing communities, it's bringing our young people through in leadership in those economies, in those particular places, but it's also ensuring that we're keeping alive that whole sense of tribalness about who we are and where we want to be in the future.
In terms of investment, as you are doing, there are different priorities, and now ESG, of course, has been regarded by investors as the priority. But on every investment that you do, how to implement that once again?
Yeah, so it is definitely a very encouraging sign that there are a very large number of investors who are embracing ESG within the investment community. The challenge, as you said, is the fact that ESG is such a broad, it's a very general term, that when it comes to identifying exactly what ESG means to you and me, your company, and my company, it can be different. So what's really important when it comes to implementation of ESG is to understand who you are and understand what you mean to the community that you belong to. And that can be very different. Like I said, ESG is it is a very broad concept. The notion is very broad. Really, to make sure that it's implemented, you need to know who you are. You need to know where you're going. You need to know what role you are playing in the society, in the community that you are a part of. And that's what really makes the ESG really useful.
Business have to juggle all of these needs all at the same time, be able to come to a compromise or something that could really express yourself. So tell me more about that juggling in a way. How would you be able to find that balance?
I think there are mainly 4 drivers in terms of how you should look at the entire ESG trend. One is your customer, who you're serving. Okay, what are they thinking in terms of the ESG elements in their mind? Number 2, your employees. What is that your employees expect from your company in terms of ESG principles? And then number 3, I think there is a very big role to be played by capital markets. That's basically us investors. What is it that investors are expecting from your company if investors invest in your company? And number 4, that's a regulation. That is, for example, what's being discussed at the COP26 right now in terms of the information disclosure discussion that's taking place. And these 4 things are pointing to one thing. They all want benefit today, because what is going to happen 10 years, 50 years down the road, that we are going to see a better future in 10, 50 years. You got to take actions today. So all the 4 sort of actors that I mentioned, they want you as a company to take actions today.